one of the primary goals of our course is to also make sure that more of hip hop's builders, architects have space in the academy, because after all, we acknowledge as people in the culture that hip hop is an intellectual effort. And so they are our intellectuals, public and otherwise. And so we want to give them those flowers because in fact, they deserve them. That is the truth.
Peace and love. I am very excited to have not one, but two spectacular guests with me today. Would have had a third, but we'll talk about that later. And I'm just really honored, privileged, pleased as can be to have y'all here. If you could please, each, I could read your bios, but probably you're doing something today that you didn't even put on the bio you wrote yesterday, because we wear many hats. Please, if you would, introduce yourselves to the world the way you like to be presented to the world and in context of what we're talking about here today.
Well, my name is Eternia. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a storyteller. And now I'm a guest artist lecturer at Princeton University for the first ever Woman of Hip Hop course there. Miseducation, the Woman of Hip Hop. But yeah, ultimately, I'm an MC.
Yeah.
My name is Dr. Francesca D'Amico-Cuthbert, and I am very privileged to be a friend to Eternia, a colleague, and I am an artist, a multidisciplinary artist, as well as a historian, trained in American history broadly and music history broadly, but very specifically my expertise is on hip hop culture. Yeah. And like Eternia, I am also very privileged to be a guest scholar and guest lecturer in the newest course at Princeton, Miseducation, the Women of Hip Hop.
Yes, indeed. Nice to see you both. Eternia, I've met you before, so nice to see you again.
Yes.
We've crossed paths. And I think this show should be like honorarily titled Hip Hop Can Save Canada, just because I know we are. I had to do it. Okay. Let's start where we are and kind of why we're here. I mean, we could have talked a million times before now. All the work that y'all do is super important, but I'm glad that we have now another reason to join up. And that is that course that you mentioned at Princeton, Miseducation. Explain to me how this course came to be, what this course is essentially, and then we'll talk about kind of how it came to be, and then some of the background to all the work that in some ways I think both of you do that connects to this project even before this project existed. So tell me about this course and what folks at Princeton are in for this semester.
You can set it off.
Oh, me? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Eternia tell the backstory because she's really the connector, and I think it's better suited for that to come from Eternia. But in essence, this is a very unique course on women in hip hop. There are other courses, of course, in American institutions that cover both hip hop culture, history, and the impact of gender. But one of the things that's very unique about what we're doing is it's a co-taught piece. And it uses a number of methodologies to get to the histories and the performances of women in hip hop. So we obviously do a lot of work at the top end, looking at the context of how women are part of the culture going all the way back to the beginning. We also blend that with a lot of archival practice. So we look at also how we find and recover and preserve the stories of women in hip hop to give a much more nuanced vision of what hip hop culture was at the onset and how it's grown since then. And while we're doing that historical and archival and preservation work, we're also simultaneously asking students to transform that work into artistic production so that by the time we get to the end of the course, they will be actually performing their research in a public-facing performance so that the research becomes alive. And that's something that is not always happening in a lot of institutions. And I think for the students, it's a really rewarding experience because it just isn't rooting their work as students in what is, traditionally university space of just producing papers and that sort of thing. But the work gets to come alive. And along the way, we're going to have a number of guests in the course that include a number of women from the culture. So they get to actually speak with the people that they're researching, which is, of course, a privilege, is something that I think both Eternia and I, when we were students, would have loved to be in a hip hop class, first and foremost, but then a hip hop class where we actually get to speak and exchange with the very women who help build the culture. So for that, we're very grateful to be creating something that's methodologically very different than a lot of what exists out there at this moment.
Yeah,
for sure. Go ahead, Eternia.
Oh, I'm just riffing, like fully immersive, multidisciplinary. It's like my dream course. Like I get excited thinking about it because I'm like, this is what, if I could have designed something for myself when I was in university, I went to school in Toronto, this would be it. And big props to Chesney Snow, who is faculty there, who teaches there in the drama department, in the theater department, pardon me, for this being his brainchild and bringing us on.
Yeah. Super dope. And I think that creative aspect of it is rather unique. But you don't have to necessarily be a performing artist to, take part in it. There's several ways that research can come alive. Give me some ideas of, not that you have to seed the idea to some of these students coming in, but what are some of the things that you would encourage or expect to see?
Yeah, that's so we're doing a little bit of podcasting, similar to what you
Come on now.
So they get to engage with their subjects in a way that's kind of beyond the page and beyond research, into something that will also be forward facing. So at the end, people will be able to visually watch and hear their podcast, I guess you could say interviews or live archival subjects. And they're doing a lot of like internal work, because for me, a lot of what makes hip hop sacred is a lot of the truth seeking, the truth speaking, the vulnerability, the transparency. And so we're asking them to dig deep inside of their own experiences as well. There's going to be like a lyricist lounge component to it. So because it's theater, it's not just we getting on stage and we rapping, and not everyone's going to be necessarily rapping. We're not asking everybody to be a vocalist, but everyone's going to take part in a kind of theater sketch. We're using the art of I don't want to say sarcasm, but of kind of, it's the word that Chesney uses. He needs to be here.
Satire.
Yeah.
Satire. Okay.
Not sarcasm, but satire. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Which can be sarcastic, but yeah.
If you
I get
ever
it.
saw Lounge, MTV in the 90s, that's something that we are implementing in this theater course as well.
That's super dope. But so okay, you hinted at it before. The backstory how this came to be. Our guy Chesney, of course, and just for those who don't know, Chesney Snow, for years and years and years, ran the American Beatbox Championship. Has been an advocate for multiple art forms within hip hop culture, bringing it to theater, bringing it to stages, bringing it to institutions. And what I love about all of y'all, collectively, is the sort of insistence on having practitioners be a part of these courses. So I'm saluting that idea that it's not just theorists or people who, read books, and it's actually people from the culture that have done this work that are in there. We need more of that, and I'm glad to see it happening here. So how did this come together? Whose brainchild it is, and what was the connecting dots?
Ultimately, Chesney Snow, and we're really sorry that he can't be here today, because he's a very strong, like if we're a chord of three, he's a very strong thread in all of this. His inception, his brainchild. He called.
I'll get him on. I've been trying to. We've had several missed connections, me and him over the years.
He's always juggling a lot. A lot, and he's been on Broadway and he's been in theater, and I met him actually 20 years ago. I met him on MySpace, and ultimately that friendship turned into rocking countless stages together all over New York and the United States. He beatboxing and myself rapping, and he was family. He's New York family. And so, fast forward to the future, and he calls me the fall of 2024. And he's like, listen, Princeton, he's, a professor there. He said, Princeton has this like internal thing that we can apply for to fund a course for 3 years, a new course. And he's like, I want to apply for a new course here, women of hip hop, and I want you to be a part of it. And I was like floored. Obviously, I got really excited right away. But the second I got off the phone call, I was like, I can't do this.
Right.
I was like,
you're like, yes. And then you're like, now what do I do?
Yeah. I'm like, you totally got the wrong person. I don't think I could do this. I mean, I knew I could come in for like a workshop for a day, but I'm like, I don't know. Mind you, the backstory is I've been, stay-at-home mom for like the last 5-6 years. I haven't been I've been doing one-off Eternia things, but it's been a little bit more about my duties to my family. So I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So right away, I think in our first call, I mentioned Dr. Francesca, and I was like, you need to get Francesca on board. And so as of December of 2024, we were all meeting together, and we've been meeting ever since. And we've been putting this course together, and thankfully we got the grant from Princeton, and he did. And we've been kind of co-designing this course ever since.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question that really the answer is duh. But why is it important to have this focus, women in hip hop, as you broke down eloquently to tell me, kind of what it's all about and what it's going to be looking at? Why is it important to do on an institutional level? Why is it important to do now? And why is it important to do it in this way?
That's a big question. I guess I'll start with the way we start the course is we think a lot about the politics of story. And we're confronted with that every day, in the world of news, in the world of journalism, in your world of podcasting, where stories really do have a political dimension to them. Right. And so we start the course off that way because we recognize that for a very long time, hip hop has been framed in a very singular way, for the most part, that oftentimes platforms very prominently, if not kind of uniformly, the stories of boys and men in hip hop. Right. And that's not to say that those stories aren't accurate, but it is to say that the story without women and girls is incomplete. And so we wanted to start the course by thinking about the dimensions of those that power, alerting students to that, and thinking through thinking through the question of what happens when women and girls, or the lens of gender, is fixed on hip hop. How does that change the dimensions of the beginnings, the origin story as it goes? What more do we learn? Who appears? Who disappears? Who gains prominence? Who falls more so into the background? And why is that the case? So I think having a course that features women and girls so prominently is one that allows us to think about the politics of hip hop and how hip hop came to be storied in the public the way that it did, how it came to have a public and political voice, how it is that oftentimes men and boys become the kind of public facing voice and leading the hip hop agenda. And so to think through the politics of those things, because they have shaped a lot of how women and girls experience hip hop, the place that they have held, the kinds of roles and even the leadership positions that they take up, but also how we imagine them, how they've been represented, how they choose to present themselves, and how they choose to show up and transform the laneway for all the women and girls that come after them. So we're really thinking a lot about the politics of those things. Because it's not enough to just share the details and the stories of young women and girls. We have to think about why hip hop has been constituted in the way that it has. And while we're doing that, including very prominently the voices of the girls who have now become women in hip hop, because a lot of the times in the academy, people who are doing work in hip hop studies, we're observers, right? And in looking at the history and the details of hip hop, we're giving our impressions, we're giving our observations, our analysis. And a lot of the times, especially in the work of oral histories, I myself being a historian, we're oftentimes confronted that when we speak to the practitioners, what we think may be happening as scholars may not in fact be how the artists themselves are experiencing it or what their intentions are in the culture. And so it's really good to have those two things in conversation so that we can continue to learn from one another and generate a much more robust story of what hip hop has been and, and what it's becoming ultimately, right? And we can grow together, because I think one of the primary goals of our course is to also make sure that more of hip hop's builders, architects have space in the academy, because after all, we acknowledge as people in the culture that hip hop is an intellectual effort. Right. And so they are our intellectuals, public and otherwise. And so we want to give them those flowers because in fact, they deserve them. That is the truth.
Facts.
And listen, there's nothing more. I'm channeling my inner Chesney here. He would also say the importance of sound and movement towards healing. All of the workshops, right, all the things he does kind of lends toward healing of like intergenerational, obviously systemic, inequalities and oppression and trauma. And so I think that it's important that we bring that into the mix. I also, as a storyteller, one conversation that Francesca and I had before the course began was just asking the right questions and thinking critically more than having the right answers. So I think in our course, we will have done our job if they leave with more just holding things that everyone has always held from one perspective, from a different point of view, maybe, and having the right questions more than just knowing what we want to hear. It's not what we want to hear. It's thinking critically in that regard. Yeah.
What do you think what does being an artist, like I said, a practitioner yourself, bring to this? Like you could talk to a bunch, you could have them, but what does it to have that you were part of the design of the, hey now, part of the design of the course. What did you get out of it that maybe you didn't expect? And what do you think that the course is going to benefit from that they won't benefit from if they just respectfully only have, historians and journalists and podcasters running these shows? What special sauce do you bring into the mix that only an artist who's been in the grind, like I said, a woman in this field has gone through and been through the grind brings to the table?
I think there's a number of different things, obviously, but when I think about praxis, so, there's definitely many things that Francesca can teach that I have not studied, because as a practitioner, I'm like, okay, like this is the work in the academy based on what we do, but this is not what I think when I make a rap. I'm not sitting there thinking about how I'm like breaking down certain stereotypes and doing this, doing that. Like I'm just writing
doing it.
I'm writing from my heart. But yeah, I think I'm bringing the students. My main goal is to be myself there and to bring the students into the world of what it takes to not only it's not even about writing raps, to be honest. What it takes to show up vulnerably and honestly and courageously, and to bring that into anything you do. And so for me, it's all and then also about like stepping outside of yourself. I know Chesney as well has them doing a lot of exercises that break down kind of the walls between the students in that course. There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of physical exercises going on. The first thing I led I've been there pretty much every week except for one, but the first thing I led was actually kind of a workshop on cadence and delivery and flow. So we analyzed, this is just an example, we analyzed Rod Digga's cadence and flow on Imperial. We analyzed Homegirl on Diggable Planets when she did I'm Cool Like That, I'm Chill Like That, Ladybug.
Right.
And then I took Linnell Grant from Houston, Texas, and took one of her flows. And I had each groups of students analyze the flows and then deliver on the instrumental a similar flow, different content. And the content was actually assigned from Francesca's lecture. And they're all doing this within like 20 minutes. And so for me, I'm like, let's analyze the craft. So I'm bringing a lot of let's analyze, dissect, and then learn from, break down, not necessarily mimic, but even I have been inspired by Big Pun flows or Pharoah Monch flows or Nas flows. You might not hear it in my music, but it's there if you really pay attention. You know what I mean? So we all pay tribute and we honor. So a lot of the practical craft stuff I'm bringing to the table, and then speaking to things from a perspective that is just more from being in it as opposed to analyzing it. For sure. I remember going to an art gallery recently in Toronto, actually, a couple of years ago. It was Basquiat. And I remember reading, I told you this, Francesca, I remember reading all of the blurbs that were beside the paintings, talking about the significance of what Basquiat was doing in this painting. And I'm going to be honest with you. After I read all those blurbs, I was like, okay, forgive me. I was like, I'm not saying it was all bullshit, but I was like, if Basquiat was here today, he'd be like, nah, B. Like, I wasn't thinking all that when I was painting. I was zoning. I was in the spirit. I was like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you got all of that from it. And if so, it was bigger than him, right? But I think like a lot of it was imbuing things upon art that is like art for art's sake, just being art is enough. So I think I bring a little bit of that realism to it too.
I get it. It makes sense. I want to look at this from not from sort of your angle as being in this class instructing, but how the rest of the world consumes or receives hip hop. So over the years, obviously, this is a long arching historical overview that you're doing about women's. I love that, obviously, through the lens of changing the lens, and that's the brilliance of this, and that changes the perspective, tons. What has, from your opinions, what has hip hop always done right by women, and what has hip hop always done wrong by women?
That's a very good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before.
Never. Yep. That's very hard.
from my own personal experience, so I don't know if other women would say this that are practitioners of culture. I think that what I've experienced that has always been done right by women is not only so community and family. I think hip hop culture itself is better at community and family than churches, than religion, than a lot of other places. I've always felt that deeply. And I was on my own since I was 15, and hip hop was literally home and family and like literally fed me. You know what I'm saying? Couches, people, kindness. And for me, I think skill, and this is something that, you know, gets tough if you're not skilled, but skill always opened doors of not just opportunity, but respect. Mm-hmm. So I felt like if somebody, let me give you an example. I'm a vulnerable, like at-risk youth on the streets. And this dude's trying to, as we say in Ottawa, dude trying to chop me. You know what I'm saying? So say, if I immediately, as a 15, 16-year-old is like, yo, like, because everybody was rapping, you know, start spitting and they realize that I rap, all of a sudden, they look at me a little bit different. Like there's a little bit of a protective, like, oh shit, this person's my equal. This person's not just somebody for me to try and, you know, chop. So for me, those were some experiences with hip hop. Like, so it was a passport to a little bit more safety, more respect, community, and family. And that's what I experienced as a woman in hip hop. The negative sides, we can go on a long time about, and I've experienced those too. Yeah. But I haven't experienced them as drastically as one would. Maybe I've just been a horse with blinders on and I just choose not to absorb the negative experiences as much. But I'm sure Francesca could speak to that too.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what you said, because I think what hip hop does very well, and this isn't just true for women, I think is generally true, is that it really prioritizes craft and skill in a way that, you know, immediately when people in hip hop recognize that you are good at what you do, you are studied, there's no questioning that. There, like the doors of respect swing wide open. Right. And so it encourages you too, as a person in hip hop, to refine your skill like in fire, right? That you have to really work hard at what you do. And so it gives like all of us a shared love, right, for craft, and noticing that in craft we're all equal, right? In terms of like if you're good at what you do. Right. I would say that for me, a lot of the times, and this is one thing we glean from hip hop feminism too, right? Hip hop feminism helps us understand and have compassion for men in hip hop culture, right? In a way that I think the outside, people on the outside of hip hop oftentimes just frame hip hop as this like deeply patriarchal, misogynist culture. But inside of hip hop, I've had some of my most meaningful, supportive, loving mentorships and supportive friendships from men. Right. That's unequivocal for me. 100%. So okay. I can't say, I mean, of course, we've all had those moments where we have men who challenge us, who don't treat us as equals. And that's just generally true of the patriarchal culture that we live in. Right. But I genuinely have to say that it's not overwhelmingly been my experience. In fact, I've been encircled by men who really do see that when you're good at what you do, it's important to not just hold women up, but also shelter them, shield them, protect them from what they know will inevitably come to women because of the nature of sexist practice.
Right. Oh, wow, that's deep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and just to your point, to both your points, Eternia, you know, I often quote Tony Blackman, the great Tony Blackman, who will say, you could pick me up and put me anywhere in the world. Not in the ocean, doesn't work there. But, you know, put me where there are people and you give me a little bit of time, maybe an hour, maybe two, and I'll find hip hop. And when I do, I'll find community and I'll find a place to eat. I'll probably find a place to sleep if I need it. And that's worldwide and global. And I said in my humble brag TEDx talk just recently, I said that nothing to me, and I agree with you, nothing does that anywhere but hip hop. Right, not sports, because oh boy, no, you know, if don't come at me, Nets fans. I don't. We're not talking. But you know, not politics. For sure, not religion. Like, what else around the world can you have that kind of global, you know, connectivity? But in this culture that's developed from remixing all other cultures and being welcoming, and you know, obviously respecting, you know, its origin story, but what it's done for that idea of community and bringing people together. If you're, and Karis once said this, There's a lecture I often refer to. He's in the Netherlands, and he basically says, "Hey, listen, that whole, you don't judge me by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. That we say it's such an ideal in America that we don't live up to that, and nobody does. The only time that you'll see that idea of we're really all kind of equal in this space is in hip hop, and that's cypher. If you come in and you respectfully." You're respectful of the culture, you're authentic with it, even if you're not good. Because remember, the people on the outside of Cypher they're holding space. They're there too. They're part of the Cypher. They may not jump in the middle. And that's just such a beautiful possibility there. And you're right. If I'm spitting and she's spitting or they spitting, we all just spitting. Like it doesn't, at that point we are equal. And maybe we walk out of that Cypher and we go back to some of the bad practices that that the world teaches us to do. But in that moment, in that space, right?
There's no feeling like it. It gives me goosebumps when you talk about it. I've been involved in so many of those, and there's no feeling like it in the world. People talk about meditation, and I've never been good at meditation. Meditative practice I have is when I'm performing or with others, and also and observing in an audience with people that are soaking in the craft like that. That's it.
Yeah.
That's for me.
Yeah. It's pretty magical. I agree. That's why we're here. That's why we do this. That's why we do this. Let me divert real quick. Won't keep you too much longer. I know y'all have a lot of stuff going on, but that's actually what I want to talk to you about. What else you got going on? Like, what else y'all doing when you're not doing this? Eternia mentioned you hinted at it. You're kind of just doing the mom thing. Anything else that you're involved in right now, or just talk about the gloriousness of being a parent. I've been a parent for a very long time. No, I know what it's like.
Honestly, like God is. I'm a believer. I'll talk about God because I believe, and God has been really unfolding this crazy path in front of me, and I've been a little bit resistant, but it's pretty obvious that He wants me out there on stages more, writing more, performing more, and so I've been doing that. Myself and my husband, Mr. Liff, for those of you that don't know,
that's right.
We're working on an EP together. We got tracks, we got concepts. We're actually going. We've toured. We toured Europe last spring, and we're hoping to do a little bit of touring again this year in Europe. And Brother Murs is taking us out to Chicago to do he does this week-long, not just hip hop, cultural activities and events, but it's basically hip hop for families. So he'll do open mics and I don't know if there's b-boy battles. There's a culminates in an event at a museum in Chicago, and it's all open to kids and practitioners and people, because we're grown now and we got kids. So he's bringing us and our kids out to that. I've been writing more. I've been dropping some more freestyles online, just actually speaking my heart, because I think that for the longest time, I didn't know what to say after I had children. And I felt like what I have to say doesn't really matter. But I realized that's not true. And
you better start playing a flute.
Right? No. I'm a one-trick pony over here. So if it's not
that, it's nothing.
I'll tell you this. I realized when Nas did the shout. So Nas dropped, the album that everyone was waiting for however long, with DJ Premier in December, right? And he has this track called Bouquet on it. Right. And he names 83 or 84 artists on there, lots. I don't know how he did it so cohesively. And when he said my name, it was like a spiritual experience. I felt like this burden of self-doubt, or just where is my place in the culture now? I had a place, but I'm do I still have a place? I just felt like all of it just rolled right off my back, gone. It was a breaking point. And from that, I was if in December of this, just this past December, I'm if Nas is shouting me out as someone who contributed as a woman in the culture, I better hold that shit proud, and I better do something with it. So since, and that's what we've been doing. So yeah.
That's dope. That's super dope. Shouts to Nas for the nudge.
And I do a lot of work. I've been fundraising. I have to mention, because I'm here. I've been fundraising a lot for specific families in Gaza, because I'm a mom, and it just stops right there. So we do that too. We do that online, and I rap about that too.
That's dope. All noble work. Nothing. I wouldn't expect anything less. Now, Francesca, I'll ask you a second, but because it turned out I haven't seen you rock in a long time. Because if you remember, when I was running Birthplace magazine, I covered you a few times, and you had such like New York root. Because I was very editorially strict, and you from T Dot, like you don't really fit into the New York tri-state. But you had New York.
Yes.
Like connections, and I was like, you know
Honorary.
what? Yeah, I was like, she's so nice. I'm gonna include it. And so it's like Guru was from Boston, but New York, So it's good to see you.
I found out DJ Eclipse is from Rhode Island. I didn't know that until like 2 years ago. So
So yeah, well, it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. So but shouts to you, and that's pretty dope that you've always been like international and doing it like technically across across so many borders. It was always great to see you rock or to write up something that you were involved in, and I'm really happy to see that it's it's something that you're sparking back up. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being enthralled by your work as I was before. Francesca, what else do you do? I know I've read some stuff you've written in the past. Your name's been floating around the ecosystem for a long time. Tell me more about what you do when you're not Princetoning.
I'm doing all things hip hop. So I also, for those people in like the hip hop ed world, I work with the Hip Hop Education Center based in New York City under the legendary Martha Diaz. Yep. I'm head of the research team there, and so we primarily look at the history of women in hip hop, tracking the global timeline. So that's what we're been hard at work at for 5 years. Outside of working there, I also work at the University of Toronto at an institution there called the Hart House, which is, to my knowledge, the only hip hop education program in the country of Canada. So
I've heard of
I'm
them,
based in
for
Toronto,
sure.
Canada. I forgot to mention that at the top. Yeah. But outside of working on research that centers, I was trained in U.S. history, so I'm a U.S. historian, even though I'm based in Canada. So outside of doing work on the early days of hip hop culture in the United States, the second kind of subject very close to my heart is chronicling the history of Toronto hip hop. There are so very few of us that do that work, and so very few of us that do the work where we try to track back the earliest roots. And so most people think that our history starts with one very famed MC coming out of Toronto, but in actual fact, Toronto's history reaches back to the mid to late 1970s. We are one of the earliest, if not the earliest, global scenes in the hip hop world, and that's in large part because, to your point about Eternia, our intimate connection to New York City, right? A lot of people from Toronto who started the hip hop scene there have family, cousins, aunties, uncles, grandparents that live in New York City. And there was constantly a relationship traveling back and forth, right? And part of that was getting the culture and bringing it back to our city. And so as a historian, my concern is with chronicling and preserving our culture and making sure that people in the hip hop world understand that we have been here from the jump. We are not new to this, even though that is the presumption, and that we have a very rich culture, right? There's so many touch points. I mean, you could think about the history of like 100 Miles or why am I forgetting the name? Sorry. Numerous, Mary J. Blige wore... Eternia, help me out. Mary J. Blige wore the... Oh my goodness, I'm flopping on this. But sorry?
Was it Two Black Guys?
Two Black Guys, thank you. Oh my goodness. So like our history in hip hop fashion, right? New York, the first time a lot of New York City MCs even went outside of the U.S. borders was to Toronto, right? Part of the Monster Jams in our city. So that were hosted by the very famous Ron Nelson. And so that's when a lot of New York practitioners touched the stage with Toronto, and they clashed, And so we've been here from the beginning, and that's so much of what I put my work into on a daily basis. And so a lot of my writing also features the histories of Toronto and Canadian hip hop as well, just trying to make sure that our histories are tracked and not forgotten, because we've given a lot to the American hip hop scene, but also the global one. And it's been instrumental in building what we call the hip hop diaspora. I think the most important thing to me is like to always carry my city on my back, because, there are moments where I feel like we're not given the respect that we deserve. and we've been so instrumental to and there's so many moments where we really do have close relation, right? Especially with New York City, but just the US in general. And so
majorly too.
Yeah, exactly. So we just got to hail that up wherever possible.
Yeah, that's super dope. People always, I say, hip hop can save America. They'd be like, hip hop can save the world too. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I know. There's other things happening. I don't know if y'all know this, but Americans can be very self-centered. I don't know if you heard. So, we got to make sure that we always help and lift up the voices of our folks doing work, across the world. I also do own hiphopcouldsavetheworld.com. I'm coming for that too. So no, we'll get there as well. But it's great to have this opportunity to reach about that. I've talked to what's my guy? He's a b-boy, Buddha, who will preach the Canadian gospel, all day, every day.
Ottawa. He's from Ottawa.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And he's he's an OG, done a lot of work, and I had a long talk with him, and it started reminding me, maybe I already knew, but just having that sensibilities that y'all everyone has their own place to play, their own role to play in this global movement, and it's really fascinating to hear how it differs, how it benefits. We always say, look, America exported hip hop, and I look around the world at some of the ways that hip hop is being treated or being utilized. I don't want to make it seem like it's a tool, but sometimes it is for positive things or for social change and some of the things that we don't see as much of in America anymore. And I said, well, we got some stuff to re-import back in. I'll tell you that much. We have some stuff that we have to learn from our, our global friends and family to say, hey, y'all doing it pretty good over here. Let's bring it back over here and try to incorporate it more. That being said, I had one question I was going to go back about the whole overall concept. And again, and then we'll wrap up with, just the last word on the course. In your travels and your work, putting together this course, a lot of the focus is on history, but a lot of focus, I'm sure, is going to be on, current and up to date and modern. And what is it that excites you or gets you, inspired by, I'm gonna say like today's crop of women in hip hop, or just the, diversity, gender diversity, in hip hop, and, folks who are the gender fluid or, identifying in different ways. You see a little bit more of this in hip hop than you would have in the past. What, generally speaking, when you look at women in hip hop, does our current and future brighten your eyes? Right? What do you like?
Not even trying to be obvious, but women in hip hop today, like current, younger, like a couple generations below me, artists, hip hop artists, MCs, they all around the world. So many, in fact, the way that we consume music now, it's hard for me to list off names because I used to hold records in my hand, and now something that just comes in your feed, or it's something that pops in your Spotify. It's a little bit harder for me to say this person, this person, this person, which makes me sad, actually. I need to come prepared with some notes, but
it's a blessing and a curse because there's also so many.
So many.
You could find somebody today that you never heard of yesterday. Yeah.
Yes, there's so many. I'm specifically speaking about women. So many women that have obviously studied the craft, are insanely talented, have content, have flow, have all the other things too. They look good on social media, but I'm just I can't even keep up with the amount of voices that have an audience, that are impacting people globally. And that is just to say I can't keep up.
Yeah.
It used to be like this. It used to be like any given city, you knew the one, maybe two, the one name, the one woman doing it there, the two, it's like this person, at least for every generation or every era, every 10 years. And so now it's just I can't
And even for the industry, there could only be one, there could only be one queen of the scene at one time. And now there's it's arguably 5 or 6 or who, that are at that level of notoriety and visibility. That's changed.
Globally, definitely, obviously American, but especially globally, I just, I get really excited. And I don't know if these women are also really dope stage performers, because I think everything's now social media. So it's can they translate that on stage? I only say that to say I'd love to see them live. I'd love to do a tour where everywhere I go, there's someone. And Light did this, actually. MC Light put new acts on all of her shows when she toured recently, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I'd love to just go and actually absorb, be in the presence of the artistry and see these people live.
Yeah, one of my pushbacks when Doechii, reached her, turning point, let's just say, or her tipping point. And everyone's like, oh, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what and I'm like, first of all, she's been doing this for like 5 years. So she's already been doing it. Only you're just late to the party. And also there's only one Doechii, but there's a lot of Doechies. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like there are other people doing this, and it's like you can't just sit and wait until it reaches some level that you're, able to notice them before you, say, oh, this finally, right. There's people every day. So to that point, there's more than you can keep up with.
Yes.
Yeah. I think too, it's a lot of the women that are emerging, whatever the note is, that they're sharing in terms of their stories, they're doing it with a boldness that I really appreciate, right? And Eternia mentioned earlier Nell Grant, who I am the biggest fan, incredible, woman that wears a producer hat, equally with an MC hat, and just seeing the range, right, of expressions that exist. And, this is also helped by, of course, the streaming age that, we can find women far and wide in our local scenes and global scenes. Like there's just so much to access, like if we're looking, of course. And so, that's the challenge that we're always having in hip hop, the underground versus the mainstream, right? But that's exciting if you're in the culture to just go on a search and find and see the richness and the diversity, because to your point, right? As there is a Doechii, there's many, there are many versions of women who are just dope in the things that they do. And so I'm just excited to see the range continue to grow. Of course, putting on my critical hat for a moment, I'd like to see some of the things that we're a bit nostalgic about when it comes to women in hip hop is like that moment in time where even in the mainstream, that range was reflected, right? Yeah. That at any given moment, you could see a Queen Latifah and a Salt and Pepper and an MC Light and, a Sha Rock. And so there was a range. I'd like a little bit for that to come back so that the women that are in the underground and the mainstream are held relatively, if not entirely equally.
You see all different types of women with different types of stories and experiences, looking different, speaking different. Right now, I remember recently I watched the BET Music Awards from like 2 years ago. And on one hand, I was very impressed because all their acts, I think all their performers were female. And then MCs. And then on the other hand, I was like, but they were all carbon copies of each other and they were all twerking on stage. And I was like, man, like there's room for that, but can we have more than just that? Like what's with all, like we as women are far more diverse than that.
Yeah, 100%. I have spoken on this at length, and I've one of the things I have, I guess, preached is that one of the ways to help, I don't know if it'll, realistically speaking, I don't think the music business is set up for that kind of thing anymore. And it's a different world. But that's not to say that it can't either go back that way or be enhanced by doing something that I talk about often, and that is to bring to the attention of folks at a younger age that diversity of hip hop in general, but women specifically, because they don't see it until they get to a certain, young people don't see it until they get to, now they have a phone, now they're on YouTube, now they're exposed to the media. Well, if you've showed them Eternia, and all of these other, artists that, from the great, diverse landscape of women in hip hop. You show them that when they're, 5, 6. I want good hip hop training in kindergarten. I want them to see what hip hop can be, that community that we talked about, that culture, that family, that protection, that, raising up of women, that, letting this be known as storytelling, and all that stuff. You show that to them when they're 5. By the time they get to their phones and they see that, twerking on stage, they're like, that's cute. But this is hip hop too, and I already know this. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that is, yes, absolutely hip hop in early childhood. But one of the stepping stones to that is, of course, like miseducation, the women of hip hop. Because now you're teaching people at a college age that, hey, this is a serious subject. When you become a teacher, you can incorporate this in your classroom. You can take this back with you and lead the next generation. So that's why I think this all ties in together beautifully.
Yeah. And props to you, because you're actually our first interview about this course. You are now. So props to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate your time, your effort, all your work. Like I said, Eternia, I've been a fan for a long time. I'm going to follow everything that you do, Miss Francesca, Dr. Francesca, and make sure that I'm tuned in and turned up with the Toronto history and Canada, right up Well, now I'm in Atlanta now. So now I used to be in New York, but I did the thing that New Yorkers do when I moved to Atlanta.
Yeah, a lot. My goodness.
I mean, there's people like stones throw away. I just run into with it, I saw MC Shan at the pizzeria. Anyway, just random. So yeah, but I do love my friends up north, and if there's any time to get up there, and I heard about the Hard House, and I do want to expand what I do and shed light like I am on y'all on some of the friends up there. So now I know who to come to and be like, who do I talk to, and let's go. So I look forward to being able to shed some light on that. Lastly, what else do people need to know? How can they follow you individually? How can they follow the course? How can they tell people to look into it if, they know people that are going to the school, et cetera, all the end of interview things.
Yeah, I mean, we're offering it, as far as I'm aware, for 3 years. It'll be, I believe, offered again in September. Our course obviously has already started for this winter semester. And for me, I'm at the real Eternia everywhere. Mostly I'm the most active on Instagram, and information on the course, we've been posting more. We, as in myself, Chesney, and Francesca. Princeton has been reposting, but you follow us, you'll find out information. Right. What do you guys say?
I'm at Artifacts by Francesca, ARTE Facts by Francesca. And I like Eternia, I'm mostly active on Instagram. And when I'm not doing that, I got my head in the books, as a historian does.
Yeah. And I wrote a book. My first book came out last year, Hip Hop Can Save America, Inspiration for the Nation from a Culture of Innovation. And I hate writing books now.
Congratulations.
So yeah,
thank you. On that.
But off camera, what your tricks and secrets were to do it when you hated writing books.
I hated, I learned that I hated it because it was a torturous experience.
And I have to usually shout out Chesney. He's not as much on social media. He is on Instagram as well. But Chesney is the reason why we're there. So
absolutely.
So
I'm definitely we're gonna get him. We'll get him his own. He's gonna have a premiere, a VIP interview. Because and
you can definitely Google, Chesney Snow, Princeton, and you will find out, the tie that binds us all.
Facts. Well,
can I say one last thing?
Yes.
I think one of the most important things about this course is that a lot of the times when we think about gender in hip hop, a lot of the times it ends up kind of coming across as like a war between men and women in hip hop. And one of the brilliant things about this is in the co-design, that it's two women, it's Chesney at the helm, but it's always equal. And that's the brilliance of this co-design. It's that we're always coming to the class, to our, the design sessions with like a mutual respect for each other. And it genuinely feels like, a family scenario, but like Chesney's our brother and we're his sisters. And that's like the spirit by which we operate in the class. And we got that from hip hop. Yep. So when you say, hip hop can save America, hip hop can save the world, that's the spirit that animates hip hop. That's what gives it its saving capacity.
Amen.
I love it. Oh, thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I say things like that all the time. But yeah, it's that interdisciplinary, the remix, to bring it all together. Each of y'all have a different skill set, a different background, a different experience. You mash it all together. You blend it, you smack it, flip it, rub it down, and it's all good. And it's just exactly what it should be. So yeah, I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your time. I do get up and back up to the Northeast every now and then. If the gods allow, I'd love to come and sit in. But yeah, and anything else you guys are doing, please, anything else y'all get into or want to spread the word about, I'll be happy to do so. So please reach out so I can amplify.
Thank you so much.
All right, my friends. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Peace.
Peace.
Manny Faces. You sick for this one.